Hi everyone, it's Fred again, and I'm going to make a giant costume. It is Halloween right now, so I'm too late for Halloween. But I'm going to be in a show in Antigone, and we're doing it steampunk style, based in 1920s West Virginia. Because of the riots, war, protest, strike, a lot of bad stuff happened. Look it up, it's interesting information. But I'm going to turn all this stuff into this. I don't know if this entire video is coming out all at once, if I'm going to split it up, so I don't have anything right now. Okay, the first thing I'm going to work on is the helmet. This is, well, it looks like an actual safety helmet I got at Goodwill for cheap. Most of the stuff came from Goodwill. We also have a local craft store that's a little odd. You can find a lot of stuff there, real good prices. So basically the idea is, I got my helmet, I'm going to paint it, put a light on it. I don't have batteries. How does my house run out of batteries? I don't have AAAs or AA's. Can you believe this? So we'll put it here, but you can see if I just put it straight on, the light will kind of hit up, and I do want to hit it forward. So I'll have to create a wedge of material here out of, I don't know what yet. I've got this tire gauge I thought would look nice, kind of sticking out the top there. And then this solar panel, which is actually kind of cool. It's got a couple of posts that you can bolt on a couple of wires to. So I'm going to attach it here, probably through a couple of holes and just bolt it on. That way I can take it off and use it for another project. I don't know why I'm talking with a funny accent. Anyway, so the idea is this is going to have a coat of black paint as a base coat. And then we'll just use some, I got some fake rubber buff here, some metallic luster from the craft store. Copper kettle and champagne ice. Neither one of them are exactly what I'm looking for. I've got some gold rub and buff downstairs too. But between those three colors, I'll just hit the highlights, make it look nice. I kind of want it to look like beat up without putting dents in it. It's, I think, ABS. I should be able to drill through it slowly so I can attach my different things. I removed the safety sticker that tells you not to do all the things I'm about to do to it. So that lets everyone know this is no longer a safety helmet, it's just a prop. So let me try to find some materials to wedge this on. So the cool thing about this is that it does have a back plate that I can use to attach it to, and that way we can easily remove this and put it on and off as we need to. It's got a little, I don't know, hanger for a screw, but I can drill something out if I need to. It also came with a little piece of double-sided tape. I might just use that. I just trying to figure out what material I want to use in this front half. Quite frankly, maybe I'll just stain it off with some foam. I will attach all the pieces, make sure they all fit, then I'll take it all apart, paint it, and move on from there. So let me find something to create this wedge with, and we'll check back in. Okay, so I got a little scrap piece of foam, which should be able to cut a couple of wedges. So what I'm thinking about doing is, instead of one thick wedge, I'll do a couple of like fins. So it'll kind of stick out like this in two spots. A little bit more contact. The foam can glue on straight to the back of this. Now, in order to do this shape though, I could kind of like eyeball it and try to draw it. But I figure as long as I'm eyeballing stuff, I might as well use a little aluminum foil, or aluminium foil for everyone else in the English-speaking world. And actually do a little quick prototyping with this. So this is actually, aluminum foil is great for all sorts of crafts. Look, I can make my wood shiny. Which is a valid reason. Or I can make it metal, but not shiny. But in this case, the idea is that I'll fold it over a few times just to give it some heft and start to work on the angle that I kind of want. Because it's something I can just easily fold with my fingers as I go. And I can flatten out bits of it. It wrinkles nicely. It's basically just a good material to just kind of get some shapes down. And so I want to be a little off center here. When I'm cutting the foam, I'll try to give it that little bit of an angle. It's shallow enough, it won't matter too much, but there is definitely, like, it does sweep around. So you kind of want to keep a hold of that. So that tells me that if I get something like that shape, and then here's the tricky part. I want to fold this perpendicular to a line that doesn't exist. Okay. Because I want to get the front part too. I'm going to give it a little bit of the foam standoffs. Standoffs, that's better than thin. A little bit of depth so there's more surface area to glue onto and hold this on with. It's going to be a little tricky getting this on and off. It's kind of a tight click there. But it's touch. If it had batteries, I could show you. It's easy to turn on and off. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal once I get it installed. So then I can see that this is not quite upright. Basically all I'm trying to do is get this outer edge, which is obviously not flat at all, into some semblance of perpendicular to the board. Do I want the board? No. No, I don't. I want this way wider. I thought this wedge seemed a little loose, small, thin. Because I want it... Hold on. Let's take out these clips. See? Adjust it to fit. And I already have the hair in there. Is that my hair? My hair's... Yeah, I guess my hair's that long. So now, here we go. Let's move this, shift. So that's a little bit better. So now I can kind of eyeball it perpendicular to the surface that I want. So now I have this shape, and I don't want to fold this flap over necessarily yet. So let me trace it out onto... should I be using an intermediary material like paper? Yeah, probably. Am I going to? Nah. So I got my shape. I'm going to cut it out, flip it over, trace it onto the next piece of foam, cut that out, and we can do some dry fitting. I need to get one of those fancy multi-bladed ones that, you know, like, I want to say Bill and Ted. Bill Durant and Evil Ted. You're now Bill and Ted to me. You gotta love helpful YouTubers. So, you put that on there. You can see there's already issues. That's fine. But the idea is definitely there. So all I need to do, it looks like I need to clean up this inner curve. I'm going to send it down into this curve that should match a little bit better. We'll come back and dry fit in a minute here. See, that's really good. This edge needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I didn't cut it very well. That's okay. Let's kind of smooth it out. This one needs to be... Yeah, it needs to be beveled just a little bit more. Just so this comes out a little bit perpendicular there. I've said that word so many times already in the last 10-15 minutes. It's kind of amazing. So all I need to do now is trace this over, cut out another piece, shape it, cut it, yeah, trace it, cut it, shape it. When you're doing this, remember you're doing mirror images, so flip it over to trace. Even better, copy your aluminum foil down to a piece of paper, cut it out, test it, then see, this is why you use paper instead. I wouldn't have had to do this dribble until the end. But that's okay. Anyone who's watched any video on my channel at all, it doesn't matter if it's crafting, if it's video games, anything. I do a lot of stuff on the fly. So here's an interesting idea. The foam I have has this, what do they call this pattern? I'm like looking at a map to see if I can see the pattern. You know, the metal stuff, with the stamps and the grippy. Anyway, it's exposed, so I'm thinking maybe I'll put that on the outside. Give it a little bit more of a metal feel. That way it'll look like I just did this out of, you know, plate steel that has that texture that has a name, and it's really gonna bother me. I'm gonna come in, it'll be like, I'll be on the last steps of the process. I'll be like, that's this! And no one will have any idea what I'm talking about. So anyway, I think I'm gonna leave that exposed. And let me check my heights. My height's like a little, well, high. Yeah, see, these are way too tall. Because I want, this has an inner lip on it. I want these pieces to fit in the lip. So I'm gonna cut maybe half an inch. Maybe not, yeah, half inch, a centimeter off of the wide parts of these, just to give it a little bit of clearance on that. Okay, there we go. So that'll get tacked in like that. Then it'll get put on the thing like this. It would be cool. And for these other parts I have to attach, so this unscrews here. I can probably use a pair of pliers to pop that out. So I'm thinking surface mounted. So if I go all the way in 3/8 of an inch maybe, I'll measure it out before I drill. And then just have it mounted right at the surface. I mean, I like the standoff here, but it's unnecessary and it's kind of tall and also makes it almost impossible to attach. Because while I could use some sort of adhesive, it's heavy and it looks a little weird. I think right next to the thing would look good. So here, imagine this doesn't exist. Here we go. Imagine this part doesn't exist and it's just here. See, that looks good. And then this part, well, see on the, maybe straight on the top makes the most sense really, because it's, you know, solar panel. So if I do a couple of screw holes, I kind of want to offset. Like I'm always facing the south while I'm working or something. So let me put in marks here and here. There's a little ridge that has a bit of an angle out. I think I can drill into that. And for this one, where do I want this? I want it inside the plane of the side of the helmet. I think off of that side. We'll look from the beginning or from the front. Yeah, and I do want it on a ridge. Both of these are going to kind of be across the hemisphere of the helmet. And so we'll just put a center dot there and I'll figure out the size and drill that out. Now when you're drilling plastic, any material really, you're not really sure what is. Like this is, I don't know, probably some kind of ABS. It doesn't feel like it's going to shatter into a billion pieces when I do this, but I guess it could. Which brings up the fact that I should have some sort of safety goggles on. I was not a shop teacher, but I played one on TV. I can barely see these. That's good. So, my advice, so plastic is always going to melt when you drill through it. Which is fine. It just means go slow. Yeah. Yeah, I can already tell this is going to drill fine. What I could not tell is my battery is about to die. I can see you. Okay, awesome. So the next step is to get the light on. What I'm going to do is remove these pieces, set them aside. I'm going to buff the front a little bit, just by buff, I don't mean actually buff, sand, because buffing to make it smoother, I'm trying to make it rougher, so that the contact cement has something to bite onto, and tack this stuff on. And then we can get down to some painting, which is the fun part, after this fun part, because this is all the fun part. That's the thing I like about doing projects like this, or even any of the other thousands of crafts I do. It's all the fun part. That's why we do them. All right, so I've got the light attached to it. As you can see, just a couple little fins, standoffs there. And it looks to be about perpendicular with that part of the helmet. I also scuffed the entire helmet while I was at it to take the paint better. I'm gonna get this thing painted and starting to dry, and then I can tape this off and get to the next part of it. And then after the paint job is done, like I said, I've got a couple of different lusters here. You know what? Maybe, so I've got a nice copper here. I think the copper is what I'll use in this instead of a silver, which means I'll just give it a good solid base coat of black, maybe a couple layers of it just to make sure that it's got good connection. I hope it doesn't break the sensor. If it does, I got another one. We'll figure it out. And then yeah, this color, the champagne ice, is more of a gold-ish silver color, which I think we'll use as a final highlight layer on this one. Base coat of black. This one I probably will hit it with a little bit of the chrome just in places, and then finish it up with some of this, what do they call it? It's metallic luster. It's the same stuff as rubber buff, essentially. So let's get this painted, and this painted, and everything else painted, and all this other stuff, and then we'll get to put together and be done with this part. While I'm waiting on the paint to dry on my helmet pieces, I thought I'd turn to my pants. Now I got this pair of pants at Goodwill on sale for 44 cents. And you know, I expect a lot more for a pair of pants that cost me almost 4 bits. They are ostensibly my size. As you might be able to tell, I'm not a small man. But even so, these are not the number that they advertised. I'd say at least 4 inches thinner in the waist. But not to fret. I have a plan for this pant. So my original idea was to cut them off here, use some scrap material to make just breeches. Below the knee, old style breeches. I still plan on doing that, but what I'm going to do is actually take out the side seams of each leg and add a strip of this material in. Now, we'll get to this in a little bit later. This material I bought just to add leg wrappings to cover for the fact that I'm not actually going to be wearing boots. I actually found a used pair of Doc Martens at Goodwill for like 13 bucks. Minus laces, but you know, an extra few bucks, no problem. So I've got plenty of this material to use as leg wrappings and to do other things. And so I think I'm going to use the silver side for leg wrappings, which is my original plan. And I'm going to use this dark charcoal gray side to add little stripes into the legs. So let's see if I can fake that look here. So if I do this, and then grab a whole bunch of this, and try not to put too much of it on the dirty garage floor, and then find the other leg. This is well thought out. Yeah. And then you cuff over here, and you get this stripe effect. Fairly common in military pants. In fact, if you are a fan of Star Wars, Han Solo's pants are like a navy blue with a red stripe, the Corellian blood stripe. Which if you read the what do they call them now? The Legacy? Legends? Legacy. I think it's the Legacy. The novels, they talk about here and there as like some sort of reward for being in the Navy, the Corellian Navy. At any rate, what this will do is allow me to add a bunch of width in at the legs. For the waist itself, I will just go ahead and cut it. There's no seam here. It's one waist to build in one piece. I'll put in the same width there. I should be able to move the button to give me another inch or so. I mean, even the fly is kind of large. I'm not too worried about it because I can add in, I don't know, an inch, inch and a half on the outside. It'll add plenty of space. And I can adjust, if I need to, I can adjust the waistband in the middle too. The fact of the matter is I'll have plenty of this material left over to put in a vent back here. And also it'll be covered by a long coat. So if it looks a little silly, it won't be a big deal. It's a costume after all. It's not like an actual uniform of any kind. So my plan is, I kind of want to use a seam ripper to take these pants apart on the outside, even though if I look at the stitch, it's a fairly complicated serged stitch. that looks like it's got 3 layers. It's serged, and then also they kind of put in a French seam there too. I'll figure out how to best split it, because also, you know, I want to keep the pockets. Pockets are important. You can't get rid of pockets. Which means, if anything, and the pockets are right there on the seam on the front side. If anything, I can cut the seam on the back side and still stitch in a little piece of strips of this fabric in place. I'll cut the pants off below the knee. I will actually probably end up using the cuff. So what I'll do on the cuff side, on the cuff end, is give myself a good inch to spare. Trim it up so it's thinner and actually fits my leg better enough. And I'm going to keep it loose. I'm not going to button them. If you look at old style pants from George Washington, you know, think George Washington, Thomas Jefferson type thing. They actually had buttons or buckles to keep the lower legs of the breeches attached. I'm going to let it loose, but I'm going to make it tighter than the actual leg so it still gives that blousing effect. It just kind of wraps nicely right below my knee on my leg. With enough give that when I sit down, it'll stay below my knee. Because I don't want it rising and falling, because it'll be weird. Remember, I'm doing this for a play. I don't plan on wearing stockings underneath it. I just want my knees peeking out for randomly. So the short parts of the trouser, what was I calling them? The bloomer. Not the bloomers, those are underwears. The breeches are still going to be fairly long, but when I sit down, they'll ride up a little bit. And it'll tuck in just nicely. In theory. So anyway, I'm going to get to cutting this apart, waiting for my paint to dry still. I ran out of black spray paint almost immediately, but then luckily I found another can of the exact same thing. I'm using spray paint for this because I have tons of it. It works well for me. I really like it. It's cheap and it goes a long way. I already have cans of old house paints and stuff that came with my house that I want to get rid of that I haven't, and other stuff I bought for the rooms, none of which are the right color, although I do have cans of black from building stages and sets because, well, that's what happens when you're in theater. So I'm using spray paint for everything, some of the luster stuff. I'm not going to use a lot of paint. The helmet's pretty much the only one, just like with the contact cement. The helmet is a kind of a specialized thing. The rest of the clothes is going to be a lot of sewing, a lot of cutting, and, well, quite frankly, a little bit of spray paint to dirty everything up. Remember, I'm supposed to be a coal miner, even though I'm kind of like an aristocratic side. I still want a little bit dirty, like I've been at least around the mines, if not in them. So that's my plan. We'll see how far I get on it. But let me start working on these pants and continue with the helmet. You can see that I've got my stripes cut out, got my light painted, and I've got my pant legs cut off, and the pants themselves opened up. Now, if you're going a little bit different way, you could put Velcro on the side and make tearaway pants for whatever reason. Let's set this aside for a minute, though, so I can start doing a little bit of coloring on this. Let's see. Wax metallic finish. No instructions. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of highlight the edges of both sides within the light and on the outside, just to make it look like it would kind of wore through a little bit. Kind of give it a little bit of highlights. Maybe a little bit general on here. I don't want to get too much on there, but then again, if I do, we'll just paint over and start again. Or let's wax. We have to wipe it down, paint over it, and then start again. After I do that, and it's to where I like it, I'm going to go ahead and clear coat it. And I've got both matte and gloss clear coats. It shouldn't be that hard to say. But you know what I didn't try? Didn't see if this paint messed up the switch. Oh well. I got the back taped up too, so I can't test it right now. I did buy batteries, so I did test it. It does work. And it is just a quick little touch. But I'm going to use a gloss clear on this and on the helmet when we're done, just to kind of protect the finishes. The helmet already, I can tell, the paint does not like to stick to. This seems pretty good. But I lightly scratched it and it just came right off. So I'm hoping the clear helps it. And if it doesn't, you know what? Some scratches, it just shows the white underneath. So it makes it look like more like it was a painted helmet that it got cut down to metal at that point. So I'm not too worried about it. It actually kind of worked in my favor. Not that I'm going to do it on purpose. It'll happen on accident if it happens. So let's see. Oh yeah, this stuff is a little thicker than Rub and Buff. The woman at the craft store said what she was doing was wetting her finger down to put it on there, but I'm trying to do it a little bit dry. It's a wax base, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, but just right now I'm just going over the corners, and I'm getting pretty good highlights of it. So it just looks like it's really kind of worn brass, which is what I'm going for with this copper color. Put a little bit more on. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, I got the clear coat on this. I actually went with matte. Once I was done putting the luster dust or whatever on it, I realized I really like the matte look. And the matte clear coat I have is Rust-Oleum, and it left a little bit of a pebbling effect almost, which means a couple things. One, my paint is a little cold, which it is because I'm in the Midwest in October, and it snowed before Halloween, so that's fun. Also, I probably had the spray can a little too close, which I'm okay with. Yeah, I got a little scratch on there just now removing the paint, removing the tape. And you know what? It adds to it. So let's remove this. Da, 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 da. The unpeeling is always the best part. And make sure that the light actually works. Yes, I've been keeping my batteries in my pocket. Where do you keep your batteries? Do-do-do. Hey, look, it still works. That'll look pretty cool. Alright, let's set this aside. I got the helmet out. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the copper, actually I'm going to probably do the champagne first. But the copper I'm going to go ahead and do the edge of the light too, just so it kind of matches in with that. I'm going to leave the foam metal bare as it were. The other luster stuff, the wax, I'm going to make sure I'm going to hit all the edges, so just because that's where it would wear off. You can see here, or maybe you can see, there's a little white scratch there, and because of what it is, it's shiny, and it just looks like aluminum, just kind of cut through. So I'm going to hit some of the highlights. The scratches I put in before are very visible here, which is totally fine because it looks a little more active. So I'll probably hit some of the scratches with the champagne, definitely hit a lot of these ridges with it, and pretty much all the way around the edge, just because that's what's going to give us the really worn look. All right, let's assemble this helmet. I got everything in place. Occurs to me, I'm not sure, I hope this glue is strong enough for the weight. It should be. Oh, there it goes. All right, no big worries. You can kind of see, got the buffed edges, so it looks good. You can see in here where I just kind of hit it with the black just a little bit. I also hit the rim a little bit with the matte cover, just so it wouldn't scrape off as bad as it would otherwise. So now, the light, yes, it lit up. There we go. My steampunk mining helmet. It's not too heavy. Didn't add too much stuff to it. Okay, as predicted, this video has gotten way too long. So I'm chopping it up here, and we'll finish it later. Next video. So as always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in just a few minutes. It's up soon. Ah! I don't know. Bye.